Memphis Blues has long been the mecca for meat in Vancouver, serving up barbecue in the authentic Southern style.
Co-owners George and Park brought together their food and beverage experience and passion for barbecue to open their first location in 2001.
We caught up with them to get the lowdown on Memphis.
How we got into barbecue together was that we went down to New Orleans for a completely different reason. But on our way back, we had to fly through Memphis Airport. And we stopped for a flight change. There was no food we knew on the flight to Minneapolis. And so we went looking for something to carry on. And we looked and looked, and there was a lot of fast food in the airport. But then we saw this place that was really busy. And, you know, a takeout window into the corridor, lots of people lined up.
And you can smell it.
Smells good, looks good. So we got it. It was Neely's Interstate Barbecue, and it was a giant pulled pork sandwiches, one for each of us. We were late getting back to the flight. We got on, our wives were already seated. We sat down beside them, and then suddenly this aroma starts to waft.
And everybody on the plane looks around thinking, we're getting pulled pork sandwiches. It's like, no way, buddy, you're having peanuts. And I'm getting the pulled pork. But he was sitting at the back, and I was sitting in the front, and it was almost like, it was weird. I take a bite, and I look back, and he was looking right at me from the other side going, we gotta do this.
It was amazing. Our barbecue is based on Memphis. It's the center of the Mid-South, they call it. And it's still a pork culture. There's not a lot of beef. You know, when you go to other regions, it's only pulled pork, and you go to other regions, it's mostly beef. But in Memphis, it's pork, but it's ribs and pulled pork. And then the sauce is always tomato, molasses, brown sugar,
a little bit
vinegar.
sweet. It's always, and there's no deviation.
All this talk about meat was making us pretty hungry, but it wasn't long before some tasty samples arrived at our table.
Okay, Georgie, you want to tell us what that is? Oh, yes.
What we have, what we call them, are rib ends, but there's nothing ends about them. What they are is the top piece of the rib that we trim off. So when you get ribs, they always call them St. Louis style ribs or St. Louis rack, and it's nice and trim, so it's nice and rectangular, 5-inch cut. And it's got to have a minimum of, I think, 9 bones. Ours is like 12. We take the whole rack, we trim that top piece off. And that piece is rubbed, smoked the same way as a rib, and it ends up being like this, and you chop it up. And you'll notice that it's pink, and that is crucial when you're really smoking product, because when the protein and the moisture in the meat absorbs the smoke, it turns it pink. And that's called a smoke ring. And if you don't have that, it means you didn't use wood. And a few guys have tried to pull the wool over our eyes by saying, no, you don't always get that. You can do it this way. No, it came out of a bottle if you don't, because it's just a natural reaction.
We soon discovered that barbecue is geographically so much more than Memphis style and locale.
Well, not only is it region to region, it's village to village and family to family. But generally speaking, the East Coast, which includes the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida, is pork and really only shoulder or whole hog.
And then you move inland, you have, Kansas City, Virginia, all that. They include mutton on the menu, as well as Texas, and more beef.
As we were about to dig into a Memphis feast, we wondered if there was some way we could compare Memphis Blues to its North Carolina cousins.
It says it's somewhere around here, but I can see bats flying. I hear the bullfrogs, and
I think we're lost.
Oh, I'm hungry, Alec. How about you?
I am starving. I'm ready to eat a whole pork shoulder.
Rolling down the highway on our way to Lexington, ground zero for Eastern style North Carolina barbecue, which has 21 barbecue joints for 21,000 residents.
And Lexington #1 seems to be implying it is a contender for the best of the best, cooking over 15 tons of pork shoulder per week.
It's all about the barbecue. And now we're about to go dine inside. It's going to be a beautiful combination of fluorescent and neon.
We managed to make the epic journey up to Lexington barbecue #1. Started in 1962.
What looks good on the menu for you?
Well, I'm gonna try and get a big mix. Apparently, you can ask for a little bit of all the pork shoulders. So we'll see if I can get that going on, and then I'm gonna take it as it comes. The red slaw, the hush puppies, and then definitely a peach cobbler for dessert. How about you, Jonathan?
I'm thinking I'll do the same, but I'm also really curious about the fried shrimp plate. Yeah, I think we might have to doll up our pork shoulder a little bit of surf and turf. The iced tea comes pretty sweet, so if you're diet conscious, we recommend ordering the half sweet.
Now throw the diet out the window and order the deep fried goodness of hush puppies.
These are amazing. I'm not sure what they're made of, but I think it might be crack.
Okay, so hey,
different cuts.
chopped,
So sliced,
round sliced, chopped, and
This is chopped.
chopped, coarse chopped, coarse
And
chopped,
slice in the middle.
coarse chopped.
Does that taste like pig that's been like slow roasted for 8 to 9 hours?
It's almost like a brine. It's so moist all the way through. Moving from the proletariat paper plate of shrimp and chips, we get to enjoy the local luxuries of slow-cooked pork shoulder and the eastern slaw with its vinegar-based bite.
And nothing could calm a meal like this more than ice cream cut with a butter knife on a messy cobbler.
It's amazing.
Peach cobbler. Nice.
You're welcome.
Well, that's some good eating.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, we're somewhere in North Carolina, Lexington, North Carolina. Dark highway, it's dark. We're full.
Tray full. Make sure your cobbler didn't eat it. It's too much.
Yeah, the state troopers enjoy Lexington barbecue as well.
We're not going to make any pig jokes. As we bid farewell to the local police, pork, and people of Lexington, we venture back to exotic Concord, North Carolina in the dark, en route back home. To better understand the inner workings of how barbecue is done, we get a tour of Memphis Blue's heart and soul, its kitchen.
So this is where everything happens. This is the heart, because that's our most important piece of equipment. It's from the southern states. It's from southern Missouri. It's called Old Hickory, and it's our smoker. It's a rotisserie with, racks. We can hold about 400 pounds of meat at any one time. The smoke is generated through that. So that's where we put the applewood logs.
Right.
And so it's a continuous sort of roasting and smoking at the same time, but the heat's indirect. And we can fine tune the temperature, but it's low temperature for a long period of time.
What's the average for,
Well, the average temperature for the larger cuts is 250 degrees. And that's up to 13 to 14 hours, so overnight. And so when the brisket comes out, it's jiggly and very, very soft, very tender. And the pork, you could just pull the blade bone out. It's absolutely falling apart. So it's all right here, and we like to have all of our smoking and assembly out in front of the customer, so everybody can stand there and watch the whole process, because we're not trying to hide anything, and it shows people that we're doing it from scratch.
As much as we'd like to be able to, we're going to let George introduce this spectacular melange of meat.
So this is one of our most favorite or most popular platters. It's called the Memphis Feast, and on it is, of course, barbecue chicken, pulled pork, ribs, the rib ends, triple smoked farmer sausage, and beef brisket, and of course potato salad, coleslaw, beans and sauce, and cornbread and fries. The beans we smoke for 14 hours with the pork butt. So we put it in with the pork shoulders or pork butt, and we put the beans underneath. So all the drippings and everything goes in there. There's beer, molasses, all that. So taste and tell me how smoky you think they are.
So one of the adventures here is pairing up our goodies along the way, and we were recommended some probably unusual choices for pairing, but we think we're going to match it up quite well. To pair each one of these items individually would mean that we're going to be severely inebriated before we even get into the cornbread.
As I giggled at Jonathan's pairing wine with barbecue, I stuck with the traditional beer, only to discover that wine is actually a fantastic alternative.
Well, first of all, beer fills you up. Wine is probably the only a beverage in the world that enhances the food and the meal and aids in digestion. And you'd be amazed that when you have barbecue like this, what you can pair it with. I mean, a big surprise probably would, you'd think, we have German Riesling as our house white. And you know, if you think about the slight sweetness, the appliness of it, and pork, I mean, they just kind of go hand in hand, and you'd be shocked.
Apples and pork. When you get into the better bourbons, anything sort of from Maker's Mark and up, they're great digestives. So when you're eating a lot, it's just like having a cognac or you know, a good Calvados at the end of a meal. Is it helps you settle your stomach and not feel so full.
All right, everyone dig in.
Since we had the main ingredient of a large platter of food, the only other two things missing were friends and more beverages.
I thought we were going to talk about this slot, but you know, it's
Just in case you didn't have enough animal on the plate, it's nice to have a bird represented as well.
They should call this particular plate Noah's Ark. We should order two.
Noah's Ark.
2 by 2.
Well, as you can see, there's still food on the table, and my stomach's getting quite full. But I have to say that this was a genuine experience. There were some amazing things on this plate, but I do have to say the beef brisket was a particular surprise. Not that I shy away from the pork. The pork is always amazing, and the pork ribs particularly were very fine. The beef brisket, I think, was the biggest surprise on the plate.
What amazes me is the patience required for cuisine like this. First of all, to learn it from those that have founded the origins of barbecue, to have blatantly stolen their ideas and brought it all the way back to Vancouver, and have done a beautiful job of staying true to what is a truly refined craft.
Well, they don't joke around about feeding you well there.
Oh, when they said the word feast, I now understand what a feast is.
That's right. This has been the barbecue edition of Gourmet versus Gourmand. I think we need something lighter next time.
I agree. A nice light snack. Salad?
Maybe sushi.
Sushi. Vancouver and elsewhere, I know a couple of great joints.
It's great. Until we meet again, I'm Alec.
And I'm Jonathan.
And I got some rest to do.
And I've got to find some Pepto-Bismol.